A 45-ton animal takes one breath at the surface, lifts its massive tail, and disappears beneath the ocean. Not for a few minutes, for more than an hour. It sinks past the last traces of sunlight and enters a world of total darkness, freezing water, and pressure strong enough to crush most air-filled bodies. Then it comes back up, carrying evidence of creatures humans almost never see alive. So how does it survive down there? Why don't its lungs collapse under the pressure? How does it find prey when there is no light at all? Why do even orcas think twice before attacking one? And how could an animal that spends most of its life far below the surface affect the air we breathe? The sperm whale is not just big. Size is only the first thing you notice. What makes it truly terrifying is how perfectly its body is built for the deep. Its lungs, blood, muscles, head, and even the sounds it makes all work together for one purpose: to enter a place where most animals would die within minutes, hunt there, and return alive. And once you understand how it does that, the sperm whale stops looking like a giant whale. It starts looking like one of nature's most advanced predators. When most people think about whales, they picture gentle giants, slowly filtering tiny creatures from the ocean. That's true for blue whales, but sperm whales play by completely different rules. They're the largest toothed whales on Earth, and they don't wait for food to drift by. They hunt. Every meal has to be found, tracked, and caught in one of the hardest places on the planet to survive. Their favorite prey isn't fish swimming near the surface. It's deep-sea squid, including giant squid, that spend their lives far below where sunlight can reach. That means every successful hunt starts with a long trip into an environment almost no human has ever experienced firsthand. What really surprised scientists wasn't just what sperm whales eat, it was how much they eat. When researchers compared the entire global population of sperm whales to the world's commercial fishing industry, the numbers were almost hard to believe. Together, these whales consume an enormous amount of seafood every year, most of it taken from the deep ocean, and they do it without ships, nets, sonar, or any technology at all. Just millions of years of evolution doing exactly what it was designed to do. That makes sperm whales far more than giant predators. They're one of the biggest natural consumers of biomass anywhere in the ocean. Every dive pulls energy out of the deep sea, and every time they return to the surface, part of that energy moves with them. In a way, they're helping connect two completely different worlds that almost never meet. The deep ocean might seem isolated, but it isn't. What happens thousands of feet below the surface can eventually affect the waters above. Sperm whales are one of the reasons that connection exists. They don't just hunt in the deep. They help move nutrients through the ocean, supporting a much larger ecosystem than most people realize. The more you look at them, the less they seem like just another whale. They're part predator, part transporter, and part engineer in a system that's been running long before humans ever understood it. But living this way comes with a serious challenge. Hunting in the deep isn't just about strength. Before a sperm whale can reach its prey, it has to solve one problem that every massive body faces underwater: its own weight. At first glance, every sperm whale looks like the same giant animal. But once you look a little closer, you realize the males and females live very different lives. An adult female usually grows to around 13 meters and spends her life with a close family group in warm subtropical waters. That's where calves are born, raised, and protected. These family groups stay together for years, sometimes for generations, and everything revolves around keeping the next generation alive. The males take a completely different path. They don't stop growing as early as the females do. Instead, they keep getting bigger for much longer. A fully grown male can reach 18 to 20 meters in length and weigh as much as 45 tons. That's about 3 times the weight of a female, and it's a difference that changes almost every part of their lives. Once they mature, most adult males leave the family groups behind. They head toward colder waters and spend much of their time alone. It might sound like a lonely life, but their size gives them something incredibly valuable: protection. A predator has to think carefully before attacking an animal that large. Even orcapods, known for working together and taking down powerful prey, usually avoid a direct fight with a healthy adult male. It's not because the male sperm whale is impossible to defeat. It's because the risk is simply too high. One mistake, one powerful strike, and the attacker could be seriously injured. In the wild, avoiding unnecessary risk is often the smarter choice. That's exactly what makes a mature male such a difficult target. Then there's the head. It looks oversized, almost unreal, making up nearly a third of the whale's entire body length. At first, it seems like an awkward design. You might even wonder why evolution would create something so unbalanced. But nothing about that head is wasted. As you'll see later, it plays a role in almost everything that makes a sperm whale such an incredible deep-sea hunter. It helps the animal navigate a world without sunlight, survive crushing depths, and perform tasks that few other creatures on Earth are capable of. So while size gives the sperm whale confidence, size alone isn't what makes it extraordinary. The real secret is how every part of that massive body works together once the whale begins its dive into the deep. Most whales rest by floating near the surface, but sperm whales do something that almost doesn't look real. When it's time to rest, they don't stay flat on the water. Instead, they slowly rotate until their bodies are standing almost perfectly upright. Their heads point toward the surface, while their tails hang deep below them. Then they simply drift, almost completely still. Imagine seeing that in the middle of the ocean. Not one whale, an entire group. From a distance, it would look less like animals and more like a forest of giant gray pillars suspended beneath the water. No sudden movement, no splashing, just silent bodies rising and falling with the current. It's one of the strangest sights in the natural world. What's even more surprising is how little they actually sleep. Sperm whales spend only a small part of their lives resting, and they don't sleep for hours at a time like we do. Instead, they take short naps that usually last only 10 to 15 minutes. That might sound exhausting, but for an animal that breathes air, it makes perfect sense. A sperm whale can't simply fall into a deep sleep underwater. It still has to reach the surface to breathe. Sleeping too deeply or for too long could mean losing awareness of something its body can never ignore: its next breath. That's why these quiet moments happen close to the surface. If the whale needs air, it doesn't have to swim very far. A gentle push upward is enough, and within seconds, it can take another breath before drifting back into its brief rest. Scientists are still studying exactly how sperm whales manage these short sleep periods. Some questions remain unanswered, but one thing is clear: their lives don't leave much room for long breaks. A body this massive burns an incredible amount of energy. To keep it going, they have to spend much of their time searching for food in the deep ocean. Every hour matters, and every dive costs energy. Even when they appear completely peaceful, they're never far from the next hunt. That balance between rest and survival says a lot about how demanding life is for a sperm whale. Almost everything it does is carefully shaped by one simple goal: saving energy whenever possible without giving up the chance to survive. And that becomes even more important once it begins its descent into the crushing darkness far below the surface. At first, this almost sounds impossible. How does a 45-ton animal sink thousands of feet into the ocean without wearing itself out before the hunt even begins? The problem is actually bigger than most people realize. A large part of a whale's body is made up of fat and oil, and both are naturally lighter than seawater. That's one reason dead whales usually float instead of sinking. So, if a sperm whale had to fight that buoyancy with muscle power alone, every dive would waste a huge amount of energy. And in the deep ocean, wasting energy means wasting oxygen. That's something a hunter simply can't afford. This is where one of the whale's most fascinating features comes in. According to a hypothesis proposed by several researchers who have studied sperm whale anatomy, the massive spermaceti organ inside the whale's head may do more than help produce and focus sound. It may also play a role in managing buoyancy during deep dives. The idea is surprisingly clever. Before diving, Cold seawater is believed to pass through part of the whale's nasal system, helping cool the spermaceti. As the temperature drops, the wax-like material inside may become denser. If that happens, the whale's enormous head becomes heavier relative to the surrounding water. Instead of constantly swimming downward, the whale may be able to let gravity do much of the work. Think of it like a submarine using ballast tanks. But instead of pumping water in and out, the whale may rely on changes in the physical state of material already inside its own body. It's an elegant idea, although scientists continue to study exactly how much this process contributes to deep diving. What matters is the advantage it could provide. The less energy the whale spends on the way down, the more oxygen it has left when it finally reaches hunting depth. And that's where every second counts. Giant squid won't wait, and a missed opportunity means making the long trip all over again. After the hunt, the process is thought to reverse. Warm blood flowing through the head may gradually warm the spermaceti again, making it less dense and helping restore positive buoyancy. That means the whale doesn't have to fight nearly as hard on the way back to the surface either. Whether every detail of this hypothesis proves correct or not, one thing is undeniable. The sperm whale isn't built to overpower the ocean. It's built to work with it, saving energy whenever possible so it can survive where very few animals ever could. Getting down to the deep ocean is only half the challenge. Surviving once you get there is something else entirely. The deeper a sperm whale dives, the greater the pressure becomes. Every 10 meters adds about one more atmosphere of pressure. By the time the whale reaches around 2,000 meters, the force pressing against its body is hundreds of times greater than what we experience at the surface. For most mammals, that kind of pressure would be devastating. Air-filled lungs don't like being squeezed. And there's another problem. If too much nitrogen enters the bloodstream during a deep dive, it can form dangerous bubbles when the animal comes back up. It's the same reason human divers have to ascend slowly. So how does a sperm whale deal with all of that? It doesn't fight the pressure. It works with it. As the whale dives, its ribcage and lungs are able to compress instead of resisting the force. The lungs gradually collapse, pushing most of the remaining air into areas where gas exchange no longer takes place. That means far less nitrogen is absorbed into the blood in the first place. Instead of trying to fix the problem later, the whale avoids creating the problem at all. It's a simple idea, but an incredibly effective one. Of course, if the lungs aren't supplying much oxygen during a long dive, the whale still needs another way to keep its body running. That's where its blood and muscles take over. Sperm whales carry an unusually large volume of blood packed with hemoglobin, the protein that transports oxygen throughout the body. But even more impressive are their muscles. They're loaded with myoglobin, an oxygen-storing protein found at some of the highest concentrations in the animal kingdom. That's why their muscles appear such a deep, almost black shade of red. They're built to hold onto oxygen for as long as possible. Together, these systems give the whale enough stored oxygen to descend into the deep, search for prey, complete the hunt, and make the long journey back to the surface without taking another breath. The more you learn about sperm whales, the more you realize their survival isn't based on one incredible ability. It's the result of countless small adaptations working together. Their bodies don't try to overpower the crushing force of the deep ocean. They allow the pressure to compress the parts that safely can, while protecting the systems that matter most. It's a smarter solution, one that's been refined over millions of years. And once the whale reaches the dark seafloor, another challenge begins. Finding prey in a place where light simply doesn't exist. By the time a sperm whale reaches hunting depth, one thing has completely disappeared: light. Down there, the ocean is almost pitch black. Looking around doesn't help because there's simply nothing to see. If a predator depended on its eyes, every hunt would be a guessing game. But sperm whales don't hunt with their eyes. They hunt with sound. Instead of searching through the darkness, they send out powerful clicking sounds through a specialized system inside their nasal passages. Those clicks travel through the water, and the massive structure inside the whale's head helps amplify and focus them into a narrow beam, A moment later, the echoes come back. Every echo tells a story. The whale can tell where something is, how far away it might be, and even get a sense of its size. It's almost like building a three-dimensional map without seeing a single thing. In a world where vision becomes useless, sound becomes everything. That's what makes the sperm whale such an effective hunter. It doesn't wait for prey to appear. It finds animals hidden in complete darkness long before they ever know they're being tracked. And once the target gets close enough, the hunt changes again. Most people imagine those large teeth ripping prey apart. But that's probably not what usually happens. The sperm whale's lower jaw carries rows of cone-shaped teeth, while the upper jaw has matching sockets instead of another set of teeth. That design isn't ideal for chewing. Instead, researchers believe the whale relies on an incredibly powerful suction system. It suddenly expands its mouth and tongue, creating a burst of negative pressure strong enough to pull the prey inside almost in one motion. Rather than tearing it into pieces, the whale often swallows it nearly whole. That's why scientists studying sperm whale stomachs regularly find squid beaks still intact. The soft body is digested, but the hard beaks remain behind. Those leftovers have become some of the best indirect evidence we have that giant squid and other deep-sea species are living in places humans can rarely explore. The deeper you look into the sperm whale's hunting strategy, the more impressive it becomes. Nothing is wasted. Its head isn't just oversized. Its clicks aren't just loud. Its jaws aren't built for dramatic attacks. Every feature works together for one purpose: finding prey in total darkness, catching it quickly, and spending as little energy as possible. Because in the deep ocean, the most successful predator isn't always the strongest. It's the one that wastes the least. After everything we've seen so far, it's easy to think a sperm whale's greatest strength is its size. But honestly, its brain might be even more remarkable. By absolute weight, sperm whales have the largest brain of any animal on Earth. An adult brain can weigh around 8 to 9 kilograms. That's several times heavier than a human brain. But size alone doesn't automatically mean greater intelligence. What really caught scientists' attention is what's inside. Studies have found that the sperm whale's brain contains large numbers of specialized cells called spindle neurons, also known as von Economo neurons. In humans and a few other highly social animals, these cells are linked to areas involved in communication, social behavior, and complex decision-making. That's fascinating. At the same time, researchers are careful not to jump to conclusions. A brain can tell us a lot about how an animal may process information, but it doesn't let us measure thoughts or emotions directly. So, while these findings are exciting, they don't prove that sperm whales experience the world exactly the way humans do. What we can clearly see is how they behave. And their behavior tells an incredible story. The heart of sperm whale society isn't built around the biggest males. It's built around families led by females. Mothers, daughters, sisters, and grandmothers stay together for years, often for their entire lives. These groups can include several generations, creating long-lasting family bonds that rarely break apart. Adult males follow a different path. As they grow older and much larger, they usually leave these family groups and spend much of their lives alone in colder waters. They may return during the breeding season, but the day-to-day life of the pod is centered around the females and their calves. That stable family structure is one of the reasons sperm whales are so successful. Knowledge doesn't disappear with one individual. It can be shared across generations. Young whales grow up surrounded by experienced adults, learning where to travel, how to communicate, and how to survive in one of the most demanding environments on Earth. The more scientists study sperm whales, the more they realize these animals aren't just surviving because they're powerful. They're surviving because they live as a society. And once you understand that, it's impossible to see them as nothing more than giant predators. They're members of families with long memories, strong social bonds, and a way of life that's been passed down for generations beneath the surface of the ocean. For all their strength, sperm whales face one problem that size alone can't solve: raising a calf. A newborn sperm whale simply isn't ready for the deep ocean. Its lungs aren't fully developed. Its body can't handle the crushing pressure, and it can't stay underwater anywhere near as long as an adult. If it tried to follow its mother on a deep dive, it wouldn't survive. But the mother doesn't have a choice. To produce enough rich milk for her growing calf, she has to hunt. And that means diving thousands of feet below the surface, sometimes staying down for close to an hour while searching for squid. So what happens to the baby? It doesn't get left behind alone. This is where sperm whale society becomes something really special. When one mother dives, another female stays behind. Sometimes it's a sister. Sometimes it's another experienced member of the family. Whoever it is, her job is the same. Stay with the calf. Keep it close. Watch for danger. Make sure it's safe until its mother returns. It's not a one-time favor. The responsibility moves from one adult to another, creating a rotating system of care that keeps the young protected almost all the time. Every member of the family plays a part, because every calf matters to the future of the group. What's even more surprising is that the care doesn't always stop there. If another female is producing milk, researchers have observed that she may even nurse a calf that isn't her own. That level of cooperation is rare, especially among animals living in such a demanding environment. And this isn't something that lasts for a few weeks. A young sperm whale can depend on the protection of its family for years before its lungs, muscles, and diving abilities are fully developed. Growing up in the deep ocean takes time, and no calf gets through that journey alone. The more you watch how these whales live, the harder it becomes to think of them as solitary hunters. Yes, each adult is incredibly powerful, but their greatest strength may not come from any single individual. It comes from the family, because out in the open ocean, where danger can appear at any moment, survival isn't just about being strong enough to protect yourself. Sometimes, it's about having someone who stays behind to protect you until you're strong enough to face the deep on your own. For a fully grown male sperm whale, there aren't many predators willing to take the risk. An adult male is simply too big. One powerful strike from its massive body or tail could seriously injure an attacker. Even orcas, famous for hunting in highly organized groups, usually avoid going after a healthy adult male. The reward just isn't worth the danger. So they look for an easier target. Females and young calves are much more vulnerable, especially when they're resting or staying near the surface. That's where an orca pod has its best chance. But sperm whales have been dealing with this threat for a very long time. And they don't panic. The moment danger appears, the entire family works together. Instead of scattering in different directions, they move closer. The calves and the weakest members are guided into the middle of the group, where they're surrounded by the adults. Then, something remarkable happens. The adults turn their heads inward and point their powerful tails outward, creating what's known as the Marguerite formation. It's a simple idea, but an incredibly effective one. Any orca trying to break through has to face a wall of giant tails. Those tails aren't just for swimming. They're powered by enormous muscles capable of delivering devastating blows. A direct strike could seriously injure an attacker, so every approach becomes a dangerous gamble. What's fascinating is that this defense only works because every whale plays its part. No single individual is trying to be the hero. The strength comes from the group acting as one. Each adult protects the others, knowing that the survival of the calves depends on everyone holding their position. It's one of the clearest examples of cooperation you'll find anywhere in the animal kingdom. The more you learn about sperm whales, the more obvious it becomes that their greatest advantage isn't just their size or their intelligence. It's their ability to trust one another when it matters most. But as powerful as these families are, the greatest threat sperm whales have ever faced didn't come from orcas. It came from us. The more we learn about sperm whales, the harder they become to fit into a simple category. Yes, they're incredible predators. But that's only part of the story. Long before scientists understood how they hunted, sperm whales had already built something just as remarkable a way to communicate. They use short, rhythmic patterns of sound called codas, and those sounds are much more than random clicks. They're part of how family members recognize each other and stay connected. What's even more fascinating is that young calves aren't born knowing this language. They learn it over time by listening to their mothers and the older whales around them. Different family groups can even develop their own unique patterns, almost like regional accents passed from one generation to the next. Sadly, that rich social life didn't protect them from people. For centuries, humans hunted sperm whales for the spermaceti inside their massive heads. It was used to make high-quality candles and industrial lubricants, turning these extraordinary animals into valuable resources instead of living creatures. The hunting lasted for generations and pushed sperm whale populations into serious decline, but they weren't always helpless. History records several cases where adult males fought back, using their enormous heads to ram whaling ships. The most famous example was the sinking of the Essex in 1820, a real event that later inspired Moby Dick. It's a reminder that even the largest predator in the deep had limits and eventually reached them. Thankfully, attitudes began to change. International conservation efforts and commercial whaling bans gave sperm whale populations a chance to recover, and some groups have slowly started to rebound. Today, scientists see them in a very different way. Every time a sperm whale returns from the deep, it brings nutrient-rich waste back to the sunlit surface. Those nutrients help tiny phytoplankton grow. In turn, those microscopic organisms absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and play an important role in the ocean's carbon cycle. So, protecting sperm whales isn't only about saving one incredible species. It's about protecting an entire chain of life that stretches from the darkest parts of the ocean all the way to the air we breathe. So, what amazed you the most? Was it their ability to survive crushing depths, their family bonds and shared language, or the fact that one of the ocean's greatest predators also helps keep our planet in balance? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoy discovering the hidden lives of Earth's most extraordinary predators, be sure to subscribe to Predator Archives. There are many more incredible stories waiting beneath the surface.